Hey, what is up, everyone? Tyler Ramsbey here. Welcome back to another live stream. If you're watching this right now on Twitch, if you're watching after the fact on YouTube, as always, it is an honor to have you taking the time to hang out with me to learn some ethical hacking, some cybersecurity, and stumble through things together. And what I always like to say at the onset of all my streams and all my videos is I do not claim to be anything close to an expert. So I am a student. I am a lifelong student, and I am just stumbling my way through and learning. And what I decided to do is say, hey, like, I'm already doing this in the evenings. I might as well invite people to learn right alongside of me. So you can catch my content here on Twitch, either me or Nate. We are live almost every night of the week. Or you can catch some of my past content on YouTube, as well as other little like shorter clips about career advice and things like that. So all that being said, let's dive into things. We're going to continue our series through recent threats. And I just realized I was not live on Discord yet, so I'm gonna jump in Discord as well. If you are on the Work Smarter Discord, you can join me on Discord and you can actually talk and hang out with me on there. Just get connected to the box hacking room. There we go, I am connected on there. And let me share my screen real quick. All right, and what we're gonna be doing today is some more TryHackMe. So the rooms we are doing are free rooms. So if you have an account on TryHackMe, you can honestly follow right alongside of me. So boot up Kali Linux, boot up the attack box, however you're gonna follow along, and get ready to rock. The other thing I'm gonna do a little bit different is we're gonna have some set breaks here. So in the past, I just kind of make up breaks as I go along, but then I'll go like an hour and 20 minutes without taking a break. And what I know is it is healthy every like 25 to 30 minutes to stop, pause, take a 5-minute break, and then dive back into things. So I actually have a timer on my other monitor. You guys can't see that on my monitor that I have on Twitch. And so I'm gonna have the timer there. So we're gonna go for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break, rinse and repeat. For those of you on Twitch, looks like we got a couple of people, Script Kid Cuddy, Pyrus Gaming. Good to have you guys joining, hanging out with me today. We are gonna do some hands-on hacking through Kali Linux and TryHackMe. So it's gonna be a good time. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna start my 25-minute timer. Oh, I have to allow pop-ups. 1 second. There we go. 25-minute timer has started. Let's go ahead and dive into things. If you're joining me, the way to access recent threats is if you click Learn up here. We're gonna scroll on down to modules. This is what we're looking for, these learning modules, recent threats. And we're gonna do Dirty Pipe because I skipped Dirty Pipe last night, I realized. Let's go ahead and start our machine. I already got my Kali machine open. The only thing I've done so far is I've connected to the VPN. So let's go ahead and make a directory for Dirty Pipe. Let's do it like that. There we go. We got our directory made, our folder made for Dirty Pipe. And let's just first start out by reading through this. When you're doing a TryHackMe box, it's always a good idea to read it in its entirety. Do not skim it. I have learned from experience, when you skim, you miss stuff, you get frustrated. Read it in its entirety. It helps you learn, and it helps things go a lot smoother for you as well. So we are gonna focus first on the Dirty Pipe vulnerability. It was a vulnerability from 2022. You can see that in the year right there. And we are going to learn the background, how to exploit it. It looks like we got 2 exploits and then a conclusion here. So let's start working our way through it. In March 2022, a researcher named Max Kellerman, and let me just pause here. For those of you on the stream, if the music is too loud, which I don't hear at all right now, I think it's switching songs. There we go. If the music is too loud, or if you can't read the text, just holler at me in the chat and I will do my best to accommodate for you. All right, in March 2022, which is recent, a researcher named Max Kellerman publicly disclosed a Linux kernel vulnerability nicknamed Dirty Pipe for its similarities to the notorious Dirty Cow exploit affecting older versions of the kernel that allowed attackers to arbitrarily overwrite files on the operating system. The vulnerability was responsibly disclosed in early 2022 and was publicly released in a blog post written by Max Kellerman, good guy Max, soon after patches were made available. Arbitrary file overwrites at the kernel level can be very easily leveraged to escalate privileges on the machine, i.e. to obtain administrator or root privs. This is a devastating vulnerability, made more so by its reach. Any device running a vulnerable version of the Linux kernel, including phones, are affected. This room will provide an overview of the vulnerability, as well as give you an opportunity to exploit it for yourself and the vulnerable machine attached to this task. We will start by taking a look at the vulnerability and exploit at a high level before moving on to exploiting the vulnerability in its subsequent sections of the room. Without further ado, let's begin. All right, deploy the machine. We already did that. We got our IP there. You know, what we can do right now is add that to our Etsy host file just to make life a little bit easier for us. It's a little trick that I do. So we will do our IP and we'll call it dirtypipe.thm. And now we don't need to remember the IP every time. Now we should be able to just ping dirtypipe.thm. And there you go. It's resolving the host to that IP address just to save us a little bit of time. All right, let's go through the background real quick, get the theory out of the way. Overview: due to their low-level nature, any in-depth discussion of kernel vulnerabilities quickly becomes rather complicated. As such, we will keep the information in this task relatively light in the interest of keeping the information easy to digest. If you would like to read an in-depth explanation of the vulnerability, including a full code analysis, you are highly encouraged to check out Max Kellerman's original blog post. Check it out. Before continuing with this task, it is important to note that Dirty Pipe has been fixed in Linux Kernel. Those are the versions. So if you use or manage any Linux or Android devices, make sure they are running a kernel greater than one of these versions. Theory: in order to understand how Dirty Pipe works, you must first look at how the Linux kernel manages memory. The smallest unit of memory controlled by the CPU is called a page. These are usually about 4 kilobytes. I don't think that would be kilobytes, maybe. In modern systems of relevance to this room, pages are used when reading and writing files from the disk, although they have many other uses. The part of the kernel that manages pages is referred to as the page cache. When a process attempts to open a file, the kernel loads it into pages, which are then made available to the userland process. This userland access can be granted either by being copied into user space memory or by keeping the pages in kernel space but making them accessible via system calls, effectively special functions which are used to interact with the kernel. So, what does this have to do with Dirty Pipe? The vulnerability arises because of how the kernel implements pipes. You'll likely be familiar with the idea of anonymous pipes. These are featured in most shell scripting languages, even PowerShell a little bit differently, but it's still there, and allow you to pass data between two processes, usually with the pipe character. Pipes are characterized as having two ends, one for reading and one for writing. You can see this for yourself in the way that anonymous types take the standard output of a process and write it into a pipe where it can be read by the standard output or standard input of the next program in the chain. So you're piping things together. Back on topic, the Linux kernel provides a system call called splice, which is effectively a shortcut designed to speed up the process of pushing the contents of a file into a pipe. This optimization is achieved by moving references to the pages storing the file contents rather than moving the entirety of the data. In other words, splice allows us to point a pipe at a page which is already loaded into memory, containing a section of a file originally opened by a process requesting read-only access. See where this is going? That I do see. By splicing a page into the pipe, then writing our own arbitrary data to the pipe, we can overwrite the content of the page, right? So you could overwrite Etsy password files like that. It's not quite that simple, however. We are still missing one final piece of the puzzle. Usually when you write to a pipe after splicing a file, a new pipe buffer is created to avoid overwriting the spliced data. So, how do we force the kernel to allow us to overwrite the relevant pages? This is the real crux of the vulnerability, and it can all be traced back to 2 commits in the Linux kernel. A bug was introduced in Linux kernel 4.9 from 2016, which allowed pipes to be created with arbitrary flags. None of the flags available at the time were in any way dangerous, thus wasn't an issue until 2020. Everything breaks in the world in 2020, including the Linux kernel. Added a new flag, pipe buff flag can emerge. In simple terms, this flag tells the kernel that the page can be updated without forcing a rewrite of the data. To summarize, we have a flag that allows us, the attacker, to tell the kernel that it's okay to overwrite the data in a page. We have a bug that allows us to specify arbitrary flags for a pipe, and we have a system call that inadvertently allows us to point pipes at page buffers, which are open as read-only. What could possibly go wrong? Put simply, the exploit first opens a target file with a read-only flag set, In order to do this, we must choose a file that we have permission to read. The exploit then prepares a pipe in a special way, forcing the addition of the pipe buff flag can merge flag. Next, it uses splice to make the pipe point at the desired section of the target file. Finally, it writes whatever arbitrary data that the user has specified into the pipe, overwriting the target page by merit of the pipe buff flag can merge flag. To adjust my music a little bit, y'all. 1 second. There we go. The effect. So what does this all mean? In short, it means that with the right code, we can arbitrarily overwrite any file on the system, provided we can open it for reading. So you probably couldn't do the Etsy shadow, but Etsy password, you could overwrite and possibly make a new account, all right? In other words, if our user has read access over the file, regardless of other permissions or mutability, then we can also write to it. Interestingly, this also applies to read-only file systems or otherwise protected files which the kernel would usually stop us from writing to. By exploiting the kernel vulnerability and circumventing the usual write methods, we also bypass these protections. Interesting. It's important to note that the changes will not actually be permanent until the kernel chooses to reclaim the memory used by the page, at which point the page gets dumped to the disk. Restarting the device or clearing the page cache manually before the kernel reclaims the memory will revert the file back to its original contents. Fortunately, the remediation for this vulnerability is very simple. Update your stuff. Patch versions of the Linux kernel have been released for support, blah, blah, blah. Ensure that you apply updates. Got it, we read it. Practical, perfect. Let's get into some actual hacking. Connecting to the target. Using the in-browser machine on the right hand of the screen, let's just go ahead and make this to the side. Pull up Kali right here. And we'll just split our screen here, see if this works. We're gonna SSH into the box. Oh, we gotta specify our username, obviously. TryHackMe at dirtypipe.thm. Yes. TryHackMe123 exclamation mark. Hey, so we have a low-level user account. So this is what you would get if you did like a reverse shell through a web page, just saving us the time and giving us the low-level user right away. So here we have it. Who am I? We should be TryHackMe ls. We have exploit. Oh, did they already put it on here for us? Yep, it would appear so. Okay, the exploit. In the previous task, we looked at the background of the exploit and how it works. In this task, we will be exploiting the vulnerability for ourselves. A copy of Max Kellerman's original proof of concept exploit code, originally found in this disclosure blog post, can be found in the target machine. There it is. Once compiled, so we'll still have to compile it, this exploit gives us a lot of control over how we abuse the dirty pipe vulnerability. Specifically, it lets us specify the file we want to overwrite, the offset we would like to overwrite it at, and the content we would like to insert. So hold up. The file, the offset, so where in the file, and the content. So 3 things. We will acquire each of these things in the following paragraphs. An interactive video clip will be provided at the end of the task to assist. Now, we are the interactive video clip. Bearing in mind that the exploit won't let us create files, we can only overwrite them, we first need to find a file our user can read, but that still allows us to elevate our privileges. The obvious easy choice in this conditions is Etsy password, because I bet if we cat, we can read it. Okay, but if we cat like Etsy shadow, we can't. So we couldn't overwrite Etsy shadow, but we could do Etsy password. While password hashes are usually stored in the restricted access Etsy shadow in modern Linux systems, most Linux variants do still check to see if account password hashes are given an Etsy password. This means that we can write a user with root permissions and a known password hash directly into the password file. If you are familiar with privilege escalation due to a writable Etsy password file, skip to the next paragraph. I am familiar. If you're not familiar, you can do some Googling to learn more about that, but I'm going to skip this background knowledge part. If you are new to it, I do encourage you to read it. Let's generate a password hash and form a valid password entry before moving on. Pick a password, then use OpenSSL command to create a SHA-512 crypt hash of your chosen password. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. And we'll see, they use TryHackMe123 down here, it looks like, so we'll just do that same thing. So if we do OpenSSL password -6 salt THM And we want to do we'll just do TryHackMe just to match the proof of concept here. My goodness. Did I do that right? Yep. Looks right to me. I'm guessing we're going to want to copy that or do something with it. Your entry should look like this. Okay, so I'm just going to open up Notepad, because I know we're going to be going back and forth here. And this might honestly just be easier. So we'll make an account and we'll call it Hack Smarter. That'll be our account name. And let's go ahead and just copy this password hash. Okay, does it match them pretty well? Oh, and then we're going to add our root privileges. So we're going to do that, 0, 0 again, that, /root, and then bin bash. Did I do that right? Quick check, 0, 0, double, /root, bin bash. Okay. So far so good. And you know what, I'll make this a little bit bigger for you guys on stream. Probably couldn't see it very well when I was checking it out. As we are overwriting existing entries in the password file, we also need to add a new line at the end of our entry. This ensures that we avoid corrupting our entry with any remnants of the previous contents of the file of the line. Our final content should include something like this: quotes included. So we need to add quotes. And a quote at the end there. Did I do that right? I think so. Bash looks good. We have our file, Etsy password, and our content, the password entry. All we need now is the offset, or basically where to input this, or what we want to overwrite. The offset is where in the file the exploit should begin writing. I just said that. The vulnerability won't allow us to append to the file, so we are going to have to pick an account and overwrite it. Realistically speaking, given the length of our password entry, hash inclusive, this will probably actually overwrite several accounts. Looking through the password file, the games, let's just look through it ourselves. So if we cat Etsy password, mine's messed up. You're gonna notice it's a little bit off because I have this split screen thing going on here. So it's trying to word wrap it in a weird way. But they said the games account. Do you guys see the games account? Games, there it is. So that's one we're gonna overwrite. But we have to grab the offset first. We can grep it looks like. We can use grep with the -b switch to find the offset of games from the start of the file. Okay, cool. So if we grep -b games, Etsy password, 189, that's what I see, that's what they have as well. The offset is revealed to be 189, giving us the final piece of our puzzle. We are finally ready to go. Let's go ahead and compile it. So we go there, we're gonna GCC, which is a common way to compile them. The C file right there, -o just means output, and it looks like we're just calling it exploit. Take a minute, we should be able to verify when we ls that it is executable. Yep. Okay, before we perform the exploit, it's very important that we back up the Etsy password file. I suppose that is probably important. This is disruptive, blah, blah, blah. So if we were actually doing a pen test, you wouldn't want to destroy all their accounts, right? So let's copy password and we'll put it in temp password. And I just want to list temp. Let's make sure it's there. Yep, there it is. So our password file is there. That is good. Your command should look something like this. So if we do exploit, Etsy password, so the file we want to overwrite, 189, the offset we want to overwrite at, and then that username and hash and all that stuff that we copy and pasted. Oh shoot, it didn't get the final thing on there. I wonder if that screwed it up or if it actually worked. If we switch over to Tyler, or it was Hack Smarter, wasn't it? Password was TryHackMe123. Oh shoot. Well, there's an account. Did I type the password wrong? I just copied the same one they had up here. Maybe I typed it wrong. Let me just copy and paste it. Switch user, Hack Smarter. Paste selection. Ah! Is there an account called Hack Smarter at 189? Yeah, it's there. Oh, look. Here's our issue, because it didn't read that new line. That's where it's broken. So if we... Is it still the same offset? Was it grep-b, and then, oh, let's go down here. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, blah. Go up. grep/b, hack smarter, etc password. Can we just overwrite it again? Let's try. So I don't know why it didn't do our new line for us. But let's just try copying this and I'll manually add the new line maybe. Exploit dot, whoops, not dot .py. I'm thinking of Python. So it's the exploit etc password. We're still at 189. Okay, so if I paste this. Okay. Why do I see two of these guys? Let's go like that. Okay, I'm just looking at this at 189. We got our username. We got our password hash. And then we need to do a new line, right? So if I go like that and then go like that, which I just hit entered, by the way, because it's looking for that close quotation mark. Let's do that. All right. Now let's try to switch to user hack smarter and try hack me 1 2 3 exclamation mark. Hey, we are root, ladies and gentlemen. We win the game. Following the steps, if you haven't already done so, we did it. Switch to our user account, which we did. Let's go and grab that root flag. And there it is. Boom. As mentioned previously, we have accidentally overwritten other user accounts by exploiting dirty pipe in this manner. This could cause issues for the server, thus as professionals, we must clean up after our exploits. Clean up after yourself. Using your root shell, restore the original etc password file from your backup. So, I'd assume if we just move temp password to etc password, that would restore it, right? Let's just check it. Whoops. Make sure games is back. Yep, so we restored it. You can't even tell that we did it. I mean, you could catch us in the logs, I'm sure, pretty easily, but we covered up our tracks there. Complete. What's this bonus one here? In the previous task, we exploited the dirty pipe vulnerability using Max Kellerman's original proof of concept exploit code. However, other exploits have since been released. The original proof of concept allows us to overwrite any file with arbitrary data at an offset of our choosing. However, other implementations have abused the arbitrary file write vulnerability in a variety of different ways. To demonstrate this concept, a second exploit script has been added to the lab machine. Well, let's go ahead and go back to our low-level user. This can be found at dirty pipe, so let's go here. Okay. As the directory structure suggests, this was coded by Blasty, a security researcher who you may remember if you've already completed the sudo vulns. I haven't done that, maybe we'll do it. The original exploit code can be downloaded from his website here. Blah, blah, blah. This exploit takes the arbitrary file write one stage further by abusing a rather special quality of the vulnerability, SUID programs. All right, SUID programs usually lose their SUID bit when you attempt to write to them. However, this does not happen with dirty pipe. In other words, we can write to any program that has permission to execute with higher privileges without inadvertently destroying that extra permission, as would usually happen. I see. Blasty's exploit capitalizes on this. Instead of overwriting a file like etc password, It overwrites a user-specified suid binary such as bin/switch user, injecting shellcode into it, which then gets executed with the permissions of the privileged user, i.e. root. Specifically, the exploit hijacks the chosen suid binary and forces it to create a backdoor binary in temp, really, which has a suid bit and calls bin/sh to get a root shell, and then restores the targeted suid binary to full working order by re-adding the overwritten section, and uses the newly created backdoor to grant the attacker a shell as the privileged user. Before continuing with this task, please ensure that you have exited your session as a root user. We did. You should once again be executing commands in the context of the TryHackMe user, as the TryHackMe user compiled the exploit using the same syntax as was given in the previous one. All right. GCC dirty pipes -o for output, and looks like we're just calling that exploit as well. Perfect. There it is. With the exploit compiled, it should run with a single argument specifying a target binary owned by root and with a suid bit set. For example, bin/su. Really? It's that easy. Look at that. I'm root again. That is neat. Complete. So if we go to, if we just remove temp, well, let's just look for it there first. If we list temp, we should see sh there. So to cover up our tracks, we're just going to remove temp sh. Still root. Complete. Optional. Find another exploit for this vulnerability online. Review the code. We're not going to do the optional. Oh, we got 50 seconds. Can we finish it? Congratulations, you've reached the end of the dirty pipe room. Having completed this room, you should hopefully have a high level understanding of the vulnerability and be comfortable using 2 of the many exploit implementations targeting it. If you want to look at it in more depth, you are recommended to read the very thorough blog post published by Max Kellerman and linked to earlier in the room. Complete. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. 30 seconds to spare in our first 25-minute work session. We exploited that room. So what I say is we're right at our 5-minute break. It is a good time to take that 5-minute break. I'm going to stop my timer here. I'll figure out how to reset it during the break, but we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. So get up, stretch your legs, and I'll be right back with you in 5 minutes.